A statue of Prometheus, a Greek titan who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humankind as a gift, was erected in the city of Pripyat a few years before the Chernobyl nuclear disaster of 1986. Half naked, rising from his knees and releasing the unruly tongues of fire into the air, Prometheus symbolized the victory of humanity over the forces of nature and its ability to wrest from the gods their secrets about the creation of the universe and the structure of the atom. The bronze monument, 6 meters tall, survived the explosion of the nuclear reactor on the night of April 26, 1986, and the subsequent catastrophe, but it changed location and symbolism. It now stands before the entrance to the office of the Chernobyl nuclear power station and is the centerpiece of the public space dedicated to the memory of the plant operators, firefighters, and other first responders who sacrificed their lives in the battle with the fire and radiation unleashed by the explosion. The Prometheus of the monument turned out not to have control of the fire he unleashed, and serves today as a symbol of human arrogance rather than the triumph of humankind over the forces of nature. The relocation and transmutation of the meaning of this Chernobyl Prometheus provides a sad but telling metaphor of changed attitudes toward nuclear energy in many parts of the world, some of which have survived nuclear accidents, while others have been fortunate or prudent enough to avoid them. Nuclear weapons, or atoms for war, have never been favourably regarded by the world at large, starting with their first use in the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. But nuclear energy per se, or atoms for peace, as President Dwight Eisenhower called it in his famous speech to the United Nations in 1953, raised high hopes and had a good reputation throughout the world at the height of the nuclear industry in the 1960s and 1970s. Eisenhower promised to take this weapon out of the hands of soldiers and put it into the hands of those who will know how to strip its military casing and adapt it to the arts of peace. His goal was to reassure the American and world public about the safety of the growing American nuclear arsenal, stop the proliferation of nuclear weapons, and promote world economic development. Following President Eisenhower, Lewis Strauss, the chairman of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, declared in the fall of 1954 that atoms would deliver electrical energy too cheap to meter. Many believed that it would also heal diseases, help keep houses warm with every home having its own atomic power plant, dig channels, and power not only submarines and icebreakers, but also ships and locomotives. The nuclear industry has indeed made a major contribution to our lives, most notably in the production of electricity. Today, almost 70 years after the Atoms for Peace speech, with 440 nuclear reactors operating throughout the world, nuclear power provides about 10% of world electricity. That is a considerable amount, but hardly a game-changer. The main reason why Atoms for Peace have not delivered on their original promise is economic. In North America and Europe today, if one counts direct and indirect costs, nuclear-generated electricity costs more per unit than electricity produced not only by fossil fuels, such as coal or gas, but also by renewables, water, wind and solar. The main economic argument against nuclear energy that affects the cost per unit of electricity is the cost of building a nuclear power plant. It now costs at least $112 per megawatt to build a nuclear plant, as compared to $46 for solar, $42 for gas, and $30 for a wind farm. With the construction of nuclear plants taking as long as 10 years, and returns on investment realized incrementally over decades, it is difficult, if not impossible, to develop nuclear energy without government subsidies and guarantees. That was true back in the 1950s, and remains true today. The existing nuclear industry is an open-ended liability. Nobody ever fully decommissioned, as opposed to shutting down, a nuclear power station. We do not know how much that process would cost in total, but there are good reasons to believe that it would be more than the original construction. Nuclear energy has also underperformed as an instrument of non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. The sharing of nuclear power technology failed to stop nuclear weapons development, and sometimes helped put such weapons into the hands of governments that did not possess them earlier. A case in point is India, which produced its first plutonium in a reactor supplied by Canada and called its first nuclear test a peaceful nuclear explosion. Today, many are concerned that Iran is following in India's footsteps, and that its uranium enrichment program constitutes a step toward the acquisition of nuclear weapons.